Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the creator and maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael, of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, brothers and sisters, this particular live, if we will, is in an attempt to be in sync with the timing of Passover. Now, while there are Israelites who keep different dates concerning it, that is not what the topic is here. What we're going to talk about is the history of it, the linguistics of it. What we're going to talk about is Moses. We're going to talk about the plagues in Egypt. We're going to talk about, brothers and sisters, the pharaohs and the history and such. Now, why do I do that in part? Is because of this, pardon. There is no reason why Neko is mentioned in the book of Jeremiah and in the book of Kings. There is no reason why Tahaka is mentioned in the book of Kings. There is no reason why Hafra is mentioned in the book of Jeremiah. There is no reason why Cyrus, Darius, Ahasuerus, and Artaxerxes are all mentioned throughout the book of Nehemiah, Daniel, Ezra, and Esther. Yet we don't know the aspect of history. There is no reason why Potiphar's name is mentioned in Genesis, and we have no understanding of who or what that person was in history. There's no reason why Nebuchadnezzar and Marduk and Baladan of Babylon is mentioned, and we have no understanding of such. There is no reason why Tiglath-Pileser. There is no reason why Shalmaneser, Sargon, and Sennacherib are all mentioned in the Tanakh in the Book of Kings, and we have no understanding of what this is. There's no reason why Jeremiah 25 goes over the list of kingdoms and so forth and so on, and we have no understanding of what's going on. So Israel, brothers and sisters, while we talk about those things, and while we mention what is in our book, for the validity of it, it says Israel built Pithom and Ramses. Okay, next verse, absolutely not. We're going to understand Creator will and what Pithom and Ramses is. We're going to understand why does the book of Exodus state that Moses was a great man in the land of Egypt. Why is it that they don't find certain pharaohs? Because come to find out, they were never supposed to find any, if you understand Egyptian culture, which in that case is similar to Babylonian culture, Ethiopian culture, and Hebraic culture, and so-called, say, for no disrespect, it's in the African-American culture. Because I would not be happy if somebody were to dig up my mother and then put her in a museum. I wouldn't want someone to dig up my grandmother from out of, correct me if I'm wrong, Pine Hill Cemetery in Long Island, along with my grandfather as a burial plot, and say this is part of the family of, Moray, and have them circular around the side of a museum. Adelphi University with the thing called bodies. It's kind of morbid. When me and my lady was in Egypt, a trip she sponsored, Todaya, they did not want us to take pictures of Popsetset, Queen Tayi, Ramses, Siptah, Duknuk Amen. But at the same token, brothers and sisters, They were showing them in, say, an exhibit. It confirmed certain things, and that's about the only good thing, if there is any good thing to that, that Ramses VIII was not found. And that you don't have the mummies from the old kingdom of Egypt for display. So Namur and Aha and many of the others from the first two dynasties, you don't see them in that case. So when they ask Israelites about where are the burials of the kings of Israel or Judah, when we know good and well that Jeremiah chapter 8 says that the kings of Israel will be dug up due to the people of Israel's wickedness. Why even ask us that in that particular matter? On a human level, I want to give due respect to my lady Sarai, who has been an unwavering support for a brother, who has been there for me, made me feel accomplished as a brother and as a man. And I want to say Torah for her in my life. Giving due respect to my teachers who are among the living, More Yahot Sedek, Kohen Mikael, Ima Tamikia, Ima Miriam, Ima Shalomi, and to the teachers who are deceased, More Tibak, More Mishael, Chi Simeon, More Yosef, Adon Yishai, More Hosea. Do you see what just happened? See how quickly I just mentioned the people who are deceased? But we don't think it's time to get it together before you wind up where your teachers are in certain cases. Or somebody wants to make a museum and then have you inside of a glass case where the cold weather can sit there and affect the people that's in there because they got to keep it at a certain temperature so it won't deteriorate. So before we get into a state of deterioration, if I'm using the correct word, we want to be closer to our God. We want to, brothers and sisters, have the utmost respect on a human level for one another. We want to, brothers and sisters, have, to a great extent, the love and the respect that we're supposed to have for one another. Because we're all going to go where the kings of Israel and Judah went. We're all going to go where the pharaohs went, brothers and sisters. But what legacy do we leave behind? You understand? Do you leave a legacy? If you're looking at the Egyptian history, like Mentuhotep IV, who wanted to unite the Egyptian people, or do you leave a legacy like Horemhab, the last king of Dynasty 18, who tried to sit there and decimate the king's images that were before him? Do you leave a legacy like Thutmose or Thutmose III, who tried to have the memory of Hatshepsut, a woman who helped raise him, to be made into the image of a man? Or do you leave the legacy like Amos or Amos the first, who tried to help Egypt become independent regarding the Hekakasu or the Hyksos? You understand? What legacy are we to leave behind in said manner? What image are we to leave behind in said manner? In light of all of that, brothers and sisters, we definitely want to sit there and be focused. So I give due respect to Yah, Ha'el Elyon, the Most High God, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth, the one who sees all and is not seen, the one who judges all and is not judged, and the one who helped me, not to get too personal, when I wasn't feeling well, and I said, heal Yah like only you can heal. And he did it. And is continuing to do it regarding our situation of brother is and has dealt with. Shalom, Imam Marcia Yisrael. Shalom, sister, and to your husband, Sister Eliana. Shalom to you both. Brothers and sisters, we want to do this presentation and have it to a great extent worth the people's time. So I ask you all to get your pens, your pads, your paper, and take notes. Again, concerning this kind of presentation, I ask you all to get your pens, your pads, your paper, and take notes. Let us start by first removing this particular thing of the brand created by the family of Bayith Mazan. Shalom to them. Want to remove that particular case? Yes, delete the logo as I'm asked. And I'm trying to, I got to go to the overlay. That's what I got to do. Sorry, family. So let me go to the overlay and that removed. In that case. Okay, brothers and sisters, how's everybody doing? If you hear me, and if you are in a good mood, please type in number 4. Most of the people say 1 or 2. I'm asking if you can hear me and if you're in a good mood. Now, I'm not in a good mood. Don't type 4. Even if you can hear me. But if you can hear me, and if you're in a good mood, type in the number 4, brothers and sisters. We ask you all again to get your pens, your pads, your paper, and take notes. This is 29 slides. That is worth your time. We hope and pray. All right, so let's get started. Let's pull it up in this case, and we're going to, all right, have the screen already shared. Go here and go to slideshow and go from the aspect of where it says from the beginning. A presentation, shalom, honor to the Most High. If there's any questions, please feel free to put it inside of the comment section because I'm able to see. Thank you, Love Sarah, for typing in the number 4. Thank you, Sister Eliana, for typing in the number 4. And in regards with what Imam Marcia wrote, we're going to say and hope and pray the Most High be with Imam Garrett Bathsheba in the situation and anybody else who needs prayer. May the Most High hear your prayer and heal you and heal us. Let's continue on, brothers and sisters. Exodus chapter 1, verse 1 through 10. Again, I'm asking you all to get your pens, your pads, and your paper and take notes. Let us continue. Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. Yisachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Now, the meanings of these tribes are as follows. Reuben, behold, the son. Shimon, meaning hearing. Levi, meaning joined. Yehuda, meaning Yah is praised. Yisachar, meaning there is a reward or one that is hired. Zebulun, meaning habitation or dwelling. Benjamin, meaning son of the right side. Dan, meaning judge. Naphtali, meaning my contention or my wrestling. Gad, said in the language of God, meaning fortune, and Asher, meaning happiness. Now, what can we say about this? Of all the 12 tribes, there's only one named by the father, and that's Jacob, and his name was Benjamin. From Reuben all the way down to Joseph, all of them were named by their mother. So what is these books talking about? Let a woman be silent, and that a woman can't do this, or a woman can't do a circumcision. Moses writes Zipporah did their son circumcision. We have to Israel stop the misogyny that was taught to us by the Ptolemies and the Seleucids with the camp of no man, when they used to keep the Greek women, perhaps for those who know the history, in the Greek island of Lesbos, where they get the word lesbian from, in linguistics, and they only sat there and dealt with a woman for a child, for an heir, or just to want to procreate, not because you had love. We can't do that with ourselves as a people. We cannot adopt the Ptolemaic and the Seleucid culture as so-called black men and women and sit there and expect it to thrive. All right? So again, the 12 tribes of Israel, only one of them was named by their dad. And this is not misandry or the hatred of males either. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren and all that generation. What does that tell us? That we are going to leave this earth, just like they did. But what name and legacy are you going to leave behind is what's important. Let's talk about it from the Israel side as we spoke about it from the Egyptian side. You're going to leave a legacy like David, who was about helping his people, defending his people, and who the Most High said, this man has a heart like unto myself. Who, when his wrong was mentioned to him, he confessed and did that wrong no more. Is that the legacy we are to leave? Yes. Or do you leave a legacy like Manasseh, that was known for being a witch, a murderer, and things of that nature that's not good? So, brothers and sisters, let's continue. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people, the children of Israel, are more and mightier than we. Come on, and let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply and they come to pass that when they falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. So, brothers and sisters, why in part do we see that in that particular case, perhaps? Family, why will this Pharaoh be worried about the war that may come? We're going to discuss that as this goes on with the time allotted. Next slide. Asher and Issachar, two of the tribes that we read of inside of the book of what? Exodus. This is from the Brooklyn Museum Papyrus, where you see inside the rectangular matter, where the names is written in hieratic form of ancient Egyptian writing, it mentions the name Asher and Issachar, which is Hebraic names. So this is something we want to point out. Remember about this papyrus, Brooklyn Museum Papyrus, because we're going to talk about it later. So this is just something we want to point out for reference purposes, that the tribes of Israel were known in that particular manner. Let's go on with this. The matter of Joseph. This is concerning the name given to Joseph, Zephnath Paneah. Some state that Zephnath Paneah does not appear in any Egyptian record until the 10th century BCE, which is true. However, this is the information I came across in research. Now, why do I point that out? Because the 10th century BCE is way after the time of Joseph. So let's go on. Zephnath is obviously the Hebrew way of the Egyptian Zetanaf, the Judaneth. This means he who is called. This is seen periodically in what is called the Brooklyn Papyrus mentioned earlier. So as we see here, this is the Museum Papyrus that was a papyrus that was in the Brooklyn Museum when you take the 2 or the 3 train local to Eastern Parkway. Get your museum studies up, Israel. All right? Next part. Thus we can see Joseph's name as he who is called Pa'aneah. The word Aneah represents the Hebrew word for the Egyptian Ankh. This means life. We already know that the Ankh is what? The Egyptian symbol for life. The word Anku in Egyptian means is alive. The rendering of Joseph's name can thus be said as Zetanaf Ipianku, meaning he who is called, he who brings life. Brothers and sisters, what's wrong with knowing about that with our ancestor Joseph? The book of Psalms 105 or 106 says that Yah sent the man before them, even Joseph. Joseph's character, let's look at it. And this is no knock on the other tribes or the other brothers of Joseph. Judah, you slept with Tamar while she was in disguise, and you didn't know who you was putting your seed in. Tamar comes up pregnant, and your statement is, let her be burned. Because you don't miss your ring and your signet, your staff and your signet, which is your ring. You don't miss that. And you forgot what you did, Judah, to the woman with the veil on. And you're saying, let her be burnt. And then she says, to whom this belongs to is whom I'm pregnant by. Now, you could kill your kids if you want to by burning me, but it takes a whoremonger to make a harlot, and it plays very significance of a woman who plays the harlot with the whoremonger. They're both are guilty in such. And Judah, when being told of this, said what? You are more righteous than I. He didn't go, yo, this lady tried to play me, and he had to admit his fault. That takes character. Every man ain't built like that. Joseph, no disrespect to Judah, ran away from the woman who just come lie with me. According to the book of Joshua, she said, Joseph, I will worship your God if you lay with me. Potiphar's wife, my God is the reason why I'm not laying with you. We're not doing that. You're another man's wife. No disrespect. Judah didn't know who he was sleeping with. Joseph knew who not to sleep with. You see, the character is different. No knock on Judah. But to Judah's credit, when Judah was told about it, this your baby, he was like, yeah, you're right. It wasn't like, it ain't mine. It wasn't me. No, this is your ring, signet, and your staff. So in the case now with Joseph, he didn't have to worry about that and then try to, like some men would do, in the sick case, say with Amnon and what happened with Tamar, you hate her more now that after you laid with her, or the man in the book of Deuteronomy that sits there and lays wanton charges talking about your daughter wasn't a virgin. And then they bring out the tokens of virginity. And then it says, if the thing be true that she was a virgin, it said the elders of the city shall take him and chastise him. We know what chastisement is. It's not that hard to figure out. They more than likely gave him a spanking because you brought up a bad name on the daughter of Yisrael. So we have to know and understand what role do we play when you're dealing with the daughters of the Most High. Joseph's wife was Asenat, for all intents and purposes, would have been a Hamite. Correct me if I'm wrong. Even though you had Shemites there in northern Egypt as well. But she was not an Israelite. But he had respect for his marriage. That's very important once it comes down into it. Adultery is when a man sleeps with a woman that is married. Adultery is when a woman who is married has sexual intercourse with a man that's not her husband. Character teaches us, as it says in Jeremiah, for both prophet and priest are profane. They commit adultery and walk in lies. So even if you're a man with a woman and you out there playing a harlot as a man, which is called the price of a dog in Deuteronomy, there's no wiggling in the laws of the Most High. It's covered. And you're not committing adultery because the woman that you're dealing with doesn't have a husband when you know that you have a wife. What did Jeremiah say? For both prophet and priest are profane. They commit adultery and walk in lies. So, of course, you're not going back saying, hi, wife, you have to go to the clinic because I did something. And there were women burning guys and guys burning women back in those days too, because it talks about that in the testimony of Reuben in the forgotten books of the Bible. So let us learn not to walk in lies. Let us learn from our ancestors' mistakes. Our immediate ancestors, most of us, or many of us, being born out of wedlock, don't continue that pattern. Do them proud and honor them by saying, this is what you taught me. I'm going to be a little raw right now before we continue because this is Israel. My daughter walked around with a shirt in Manhattan while she still lives with an ema that says no ho. We all know what, quote, don't disrespect intended by the term ho is the modern slang word for whore. There's a part in Manhattan on the east or west side that's called Soho, and there's another part called NoHo. She walks around with a shirt that said NoHo. That's not happening. You understand? So when you deal with the matter, say with Dina, and she went out to see the daughters of the land, I'm very happy to say that my daughter being 12 kind of didn't want to hang out with a 17-year-old who was not a virgin, because sometimes they'll bring guys over around just to sit there and sleep with the ladies of the house or the girls of the house friend. So let us learn from what happened with Dina. She came back not a virgin. Of course, Shimon and Levi was like, we got to take these dudes out. And we don't know what happened in Genesis 34. But let us learn from that. Stories like that is not something that's romanticized. Everything is beautiful. Yo, that two-tone turban is nice. No, this is what happened. David's son slept with his sister, and then his other brother put him to death. That's what happened. They raped the woman all night till she died, and then her husband cut her in half, and Israel had a civil war over it. Does the Jewish man claim that part? Do you claim that you were the slaves in Egypt? Because all the slaves that was in Egypt in the Middle Kingdom we're going to talk about was light and brown skin. Is that part of that? Or is it just the priesthood, the Urim and the Thummim? The Most High said, away with your sacrifices. I cannot endure iniquity along with the solemn assembly. When you entered my land, you made my heritage an abomination. What's an abomination? That which is unholy. You've done violence unto the law. You should not favor a man in his cause, be he rich or poor. But the judges are taking bribes. We went over this maybe 2 weeks ago on this channel. More Yeshaya Torah lessons. Balaam told Balak, I can't curse them. But listen, man, if you want to get them to fall, make them go against their God. And then you see the daughters with the Baal Peor coming in. The women who are not of the understanding of the Most High, who will sit there and tell her husband, it's Shabbat, what are you doing? When's the last time you went and spent time, even if y'all don't live together, with your children? You need to make back up with the brothers and sisters. That's the kind of woman you want, sons of Judah, Dan, Gad, Manasseh, and Jacob's other tribes. Not one who says, well, if he's not around them, that means he's always around me. That's not what you want. You want one that's going to tell you, not to get too personal, Yeshaya, go with them when they go to the Israelite men retreat. That's a good thing. Go for it. Even if I can't go, which I'm not able to go for personal reasons, but at least I could say I thank the Most High for having a lady in my life that encourages and pushes that. Be with your brethren. Go back out to the camp. Let your beard grow. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Nobody is perfect, but don't stay in your imperfection. You want the kind of wife that Isaac had. You want the kind of wife that Abigail was to Dawid. Dawid, when you blow up and be the man, because you got potential. See, a woman who has the gift of gab, pardon if I use the wrong term, said the law of kindness is upon her tongue, and her discretion will fatten his bones. That's all in Proverbs. The law of kindness. She can build him up or break him down. And what the woman, not that I agree with everything she said, Shahrazad Ali, in her book, now I'm going to show how all of this connects, brothers and sisters. And that is, she said that we, not personally Yeshaya, but we black women are strong, but we use our strength in the wrong way, in which we bully our men. As opposed to using the strength, that way he can be on top. What do I mean by on top? The Tanakh talks about being the head or the tail. When you got less, correct me if I'm wrong, than 3 black mayors in New York City history when there's over 100, that's a problem. You understand? We've been the tail for so long. We have to develop the mindset that the Most High will want to say, I will use him. Look at Job. That's what I'm talking about. This is Samuel. That's what I'm talking about. I'm going to test Abraham because I already know you're going to pass it. The Most High don't give you nothing that you cannot handle. You understand? Moshe, you're going to go, and we're going to talk about Moses in the next slides. You're going to go, and you're going to bring my people up out of Egypt. Sin who you'll sin. It says, in the anger of Yah was kindled against Moses, because I already see the potential in you. Not talking, no putting words in the Most High's mouth. I see the potential in you. And here you are being too humble. Oh, sin who you'll send. I'm not a man of. You stopped at this bush that's burning and not consumed for a reason. You're going to go. You're going to get the people and bring them to this mountain, and this is where you're going to serve me. Next slide. Notes. Under in the Old Testament by Bernhard Anderson, we see this. We have already met the historical conditions of the second millennium BC, when it was not unheard of for a Semite or Shemite, to rise to power in an Egyptian court. According to Radford in his book, Egypt, Canaan, and Israel in Ancient Times, he stated that during the Middle Kingdom, it can be deduced that the Asiatic population in Egypt outgrew the native Egyptian stock. The names of Avaris in history are Peronefer, Rawati, P. Ramses. So why does that become important, brothers and sisters? Because it says right here, if we got to it, right? No, we didn't. It's in the next slide. Sorry about that. The matter of Avaris. Avaris or Avaris in the Delta was the capital of the Hyksos king of the second intermediate period. Their fortified city was built over a Middle Kingdom town they had captured. They built a Canaanite-style temple and had Palestinian-style burials there, including burials of horses. Why do I want to point this out? And we want to show this with the laser pointer on purpose, right? While we're in the timing and sequence of Pesach or Passover, let's get into this, right? Their fortified city was built over a Middle Kingdom town they had captured. So let's remember what happened with the Hyksos and what's called a Varus, and the names of a Varus in ancient time here: Peronefer, Rorati, P. Raamses. Now let's remember that as we go along in this presentation, brothers and sisters. See, and I want to circle it if I may, right? With the pen of Varus. Now, that right there, brothers and sisters, is where the Israelites were in part. They were in the northeastern part of modern day Egypt. Next slide. All right. Middle Kingdom pyramids were smaller and less durable than those of the Old Kingdom. Senusret II built his pyramid at Ilahum. It is built of mud bricks that fill the gaps between massive limestone walls that radiate from the center. Now, why do we point that out with the mud brick? Because when we were in Egypt, me and my lady was by the pyramids of Giza. What we're looking at here is further south of where me and my lady was at back in 2021. Mud brick pyramids. What does the book of Exodus say? Bid them make bricks without straw. So you needed the straw to make the bricks. And the bricks were being used to make what? The mud brick pyramids. So the Old Kingdom, like where you see Pyramid of Giza from the 4th dynasty of Egypt, where me and my lady were when we went into the Pyramid of Mount Kare of Dynasty 4. It's very hot in there, by the way. Those pyramids were there before the children of Israel got there. What we're looking at here is the pyramids in part that the children of Israel built. The stone pyramids of the Old Kingdom is different in quality than the mud brick pyramids of Dynasty 12, Dynasty 13. Let's go in, brothers and sisters. Giving honor and praise unto Yah, creator, maker of heaven and earth. The brick pyramids as we see here. This being one of them, and we want to show what we're talking about for edification purposes. This is both dated to what? The Middle Kingdom of Egypt. Now, remember, we already kind of jumped the gun talking about, let's go in, baby. And when I say baby, I mean brothers and sisters like a family. Maybe I got a little too comfortable. No disrespect to the elders or children. What I'm saying is the children of Israel was in there during the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. Not during, per se, the New Kingdom. Because a lot of times people, and I myself have taught that Thutmose III was the Pharaoh of the Exodus, but that comes from a faulty timeline as opposed to archaeology. Because the Egyptian timeline that they present to the world and the world timeline does not always coincide. So it is a matter that has been discussed over and over on this channel. So these are the mud brick pyramids, all right? Shalom Adonijah Kanan Yehuda. All right. Thank you. Yes. Abomination equals a filthy, wicked sin. Let us look. The Black Pyramid of Dashur. This was built for Amenemhat III. This is dated to the timing of Dynasty 12. He did not have a son, but rather a daughter, Sobek Nefru. As we were suggesting, get your pens, get your pads, get your papers. Because the book of Josephus says that the Israelites were made to build pyramids. So hopefully I don't get in trouble for blowing up one's name when Uma Johnson was saying, oh, the Bible says that the Jews built the pyramids. The Bible doesn't say it. Josephus says it. You understand? And they did not sit there and build no pyramids. But when people think of pyramids, they think of Giza, where me and my lady was at in Cairo. But did we forget these pyramids? What were they talking about bricks in the book of Exodus so much for? And when Josephus said they built pyramids, could these not be the ones that's being discussed? Yeah, yes. Let's go in, brothers and sisters. And Menahat the first. Now, why do I want to go over this real quick, right? Let's use the laser pointer. In this case, his name in the hieroglyphics is written from left to right. Now, let's circle something in this particular case, right? And circling this right here, you have this here, and you have this here. That's what we call the what? The single flaxen reed. And I'm going to write that in. All right, flaxen reed, single. And it makes the I sound, not the A sound. So when people try to come against Israel and say, oh, when you say amen in your Bible, it came out of Egypt. No, it didn't. What you're looking at is an English transliteration of this particular Pharaoh's name, not realizing that there is no A because there is no vulture in it. In hieroglyphics, the thing that gives the A or I sound is the vulture, not the flaxen reed that you see there circled. What you see there circled gives you the I sound. Furthermore, brothers and sisters, Aymun, brothers and sisters, inside of Egyptian means what? Hidden. Hidden. Amen in Hebrew means what? Anybody type that in. What does Amen mean, O house of Yisrael, from whatever tribe you claim? What, Levi, Judah, Dan, Manasseh, and Gad, or anybody else, what does the word Amen in Hebrew mean? Because we want to show this for edification purposes. All right? We're going to erase this with the time allotted. Thank you for that. Right? And let us, with the time allotted, right? All right. Somebody wrote in. Thank you, love, for saying dropping Bible juice. Hold on. The sister Eliana wrote, it shall be. Yes, that is basically what amen means. But what amen also directly means in Hebrew, like emuna. How many Israelite sisters named emuna?
Faith. Yeah.
Faith. Also means trust. Amenet in Hebrew means nurse. Did you know that? Because you trust your nurse. The word rofe means doctor, or rofa means doctor. But the word for nurse is the word amenet. You see that in the book of Ruth. So yes, it means faith. It means trust. It comes from the word aman, which means to give an agreement upon. So now let's look at this and circle this here. And the same thing here. Brothers and sisters, that what you see circled right there, that is a double letter inside of Egyptian. That is the MN sound. All right. And what you see about to be circled, brothers and sisters, inside of a different color, right? I'm going to use yellow, is the N. That squiggly line thing that you just see inside of hieroglyphics, that's the N, as in Nancy, or no, or noon. And the owl that you see, which we're about to sit there and deal with, brothers and sisters, is what? The M. All right. And we're going to erase that. What you see highlighted now here in the top part, which looks like a just a line with some kind of half circle, that, brothers and sisters, represents the T inside of hieroglyphics. So why do I want to point this out for edification purposes? It's because, don't you think ancient Israel knew how to read what they call mental netta? Yeah. But it's one of the oldest written forms of language, but not the oldest. because we can't forget this cuneiform from Sumer. Now, cuneiform, the word itself comes from the Latin cuneus, which means wedge shape, because that's what they called it. Just as much as this was called hieroglyphics. That comes from the word meaning sacred writing. But the Egyptians didn't call it hieroglyphics. The Sumerians didn't call it cuneiform. The ancient Hebrews didn't sit there and say this is pictorial matter. You understand? So we just want to point this out for edification purposes. Any questions concerning this, let it be known. Thank you for the time. Let's continue. And Amenemhat the second. Again, you have the I and not the A, the MN that you see right there, the N there, and the owl representing the M, brothers and sisters. And then we have our friend, the T here in this particular case. Now, why do we want to point that out, brothers and sisters? All right. Shalom, brother Thomas Miller. Shalom again, Adonia, Hanan, Yehuda. And shalom to everybody else in the chat. All right. This is Amenemhat the second, and this is Amenemhat the first. When me and my lady was in Egypt, do you know that we sat there and saw where they had in front of the museum the images of the nose chipped off? Now, I'm not a Hamite. I don't lay claim to be the people of Semitawi or ancient Egypt. I'm not from Mizraim that Genesis 10 speaks of. But isn't it kind of rude to just show somebody disfigured like that in the museum, the statues, and they show with the nose chopped off? Why were you chopping off the noses? What made you want to do that? And like the tour guide, if the brother hears it, shout out to the brother Osama, when he was one of our tour guides in Egypt. I could send this to him inside of the WhatsApp. He said that they were chipping off the Sphinx lips and noses. So don't tell me when I know that the Khazars are Gentile-speaking Hebrews or Hebrews, no, pardon me, are Hebrew-speaking Gentiles. Pardon me for the correction on that. They are Hebrew-speaking Gentiles. They will go in any culture and say that it's them. But did you notice that in that movie, The Ten Commandments, when Cecil B. DeMille, they could make a white man as a Levite, as Aaron, and they could make a white Ramses, who's really Russian, Yul Brenner. But you know what they could not do? Two things. They couldn't do the miracle where he put his hand in his bosom and it came out a different color. That's one. And secondly, the other thing you couldn't do with the time allotted is show the Cushites or the Nubians as white, because when Alexander tried to go there, Queen Candace, also known as Balkis, fought off the army of Alexander. So it was never conquered like Egypt was or conquered like Israel was. Again, Israelite brothers, let us stop with the Ptolemaic and the Seleucid culture of keep the women over there like the Greeks did in the island of Lesbos and only come to them when we want a baby. Because that is not what the Most High wants. He wants his sons and daughters to get along. Don't believe me? The book of Zechariah, as holy as Jerusalem is, the book of Zechariah says that in the future, boys and girls will be playing in the streets of Jerusalem. This in the book of Zechariah. Boys and girls. So don't sit there and say, child, just sit down. Let them run. I remember parents used to sit there and say that. Let them run so they can sleep later. You understand? Get that energy out kind of thing. So the Tanakh talks real life in this case. All right? So let's go on in this. Amenemhat the third. We're going to continue on with the time. We already explained the hieroglyphic matter and so forth and so on. I just want to show what this is in this particular case. All right? And then we have Amenemhat the fourth. Do you notice something about the hieroglyphics? When you look at that, and when you look at that, they all the same hieroglyphics. So they didn't distinguish between second, third, and fourth. That is why it is not the easiest when you deal and say with the Egyptian chronology to say who did what when. Who was the pharaoh of the Exodus? You should know it off the top of your head. Well, if you read right here, and this says Amenemhat, and this is supposed to be the fourth, and it says the same spelling for the third and the same spelling for the second. And brothers and sisters, every Egyptian leader, correct me if I'm wrong, had, pardon me while I mention this, the Habiru / Horus name. So if Amenemhat the fourth did something, or Amenemhat the third did something, and then centuries later, Ramses the second puts his name on it, saying Heru or quote unquote Horus gave it the ability to do so. It's kind of hard to figure it out which one is which, because their culture was supposed to be for them. They didn't intend for it to be inside of museums. They didn't intend for the world to sit there and go and dig out all the gold and the silver. What they said was for, quote, the afterlife. Shows you a difference with Israelite culture, because Solomon said in Ecclesiastes 2, he got to leave his riches to his son, not take it with him in the tomb. Next slide. History notes 1. We want to point out that Amenemhat the first, all the way to the matter of Neferhotep the first, were part of the oppressors of the Israelites / the Hebrews. Before the matter of Dynasty 12, there are records of famine, which in part led to the collapse of Dynasty 11. Senusret the first, the successor of Amenemhat the first, conquered Nubia, as did his co-regent Amenemhat the second. Senusret the third was one who, too, according to the record left at Simna, was one who conquered Nubia. Nubia is modern-day, quote, Ethiopia or Kush in the Bible. And Amenemhat the fourth ruled with Amenemhat the third being his nominated successor, not his biological heir. What am I pointing out? This guy here, statue, Amenemhat the fourth, was not the biological son of this guy here, Amenemhat the third. Why does that become important? We'll see. Let's continue. Thank you for the time. You could be anywhere, but you're here with us. Toda from PAHT, P-A-H-T, Poetry and History Together, my lady Sarai and I. We thank you for such. Amenemhat the fourth was succeeded by a lady named Sobek Nefru. Sobek Nefru was the sister of Neferhupta. She, Sobek Nefru, does not identify Amenemhat the fourth as her brother. What? Hold on 1 second. Let's do this again. So you have Amenemhat the third. He had one daughter. He had more than one daughter, but one daughter named Sobek Nefru, right? And you see the spelling inside of that in his hieroglyphic name there. It's the same spelling as the heir that ruled for less than 10 years, Amenemhat the fourth. But his daughter, Amenemhat the third's daughter, we know and see, doesn't claim Amenemhat the fourth as her brother. Why? Because it's an abomination for the children of Mizraim or Egypt to eat with the Hebrews. What do we, Israel, let's get our pens, our pads, and our papers. Why will this Egyptian woman who ruled after Amenemhat the fourth not want to identify him as her brother? Because she knew he was not. Why do you think when they seek, no disrespect intended, West Indians and African Americans, you are kata, they know who's who? They know who sold who? They never forgot that. I met somebody who was a Hamite, and it's not to knock on Ham because they are the children of Noah too. The Most High made a covenant with Ham as well. Noah and his sons is whom Elohim made a covenant with in Genesis. This Hamitic guy, he said to me, my people. And I looked at him, I said, understood and respected. I'm at work, so I didn't really go in too deep with that. Another time, I was talking with a person that's a Hamite. And again, this is no knock on the children of Ham or Ham, right? It was stated we are different people and so on. And I typed back, I know that we're different people. I come from the house of Israel, from the 12 tribes of Israel. I don't know if his internet went down, but there was no more conversation upon that. The world knows its history. I give honor to the Most High, having graduated out of junior high school and having the kind of teachers I had. People like Morey Hosea, may he rest in peace, who gave me Black's Law Dictionary before I even knew what American law was about, which is a whole other subject. You understand? So now, getting back into this, if we will, family, and getting back and talking about this matter here. She, Sobek Nefru, having a sister, brothers and sisters, right, did not identify the person who ruled after her father as her brother. Is that odd? Let's see, brothers and sisters. History notes number 2. And Menahat IV ruled for less than 10 years. And this is in the Turin Canon writing of the matter of the ancient Egyptians. But this is what I was going to say with the thought coming back. I had a test in school, and the teacher in the social studies department said, write about anything you want in your essay as what it is, what you think in history. And that's why I say I thank the Most High for my teachers. I decided, thinking the Most High, not to sound haughty, in the 7th grade, to write about what happened with Israel and Titus of Rome in 70 AD. And that the children of Israel scattered off of northern Africa into Ethiopia and then into Western Africa. I wrote about that when I was 13 years old in Castleton and Count Basie Junior High School 72, and the teacher name was Mr. Little. When he gave back the papers, this is my sincere word to the Most High. There is looking at someone, and then there is a looking at someone. And he stared and stared and stared, and I never got back my paper. I passed the test in class to class. So what did I do? Was it rude of me? I hope not. So I looked back at Mr. Little. And I kind of gave him, in I hope as much respect as it could have been, being 13, the side eye. Like, we know what it is. You know about that history, what happened with 70 AD and the children of Israel. Because he just looked at me like, and I passed the class. Thankful to the Creator for that. I'm saying that to say that the world knows this history. So Israel, let us pump this history out. Let us let our story be known. Because as I presented in the intro of this, there's no point in having Sargon mentioned in the book of Isaiah chapter 20, and we know nothing about who Sargon is. There's no point in Potiphar being mentioned in Genesis 41, and we don't know who Potiphar, aka Potipharah or Potiphareh inside of Egyptian is. There's no reason why it talks about Pithom and Ramses in Exodus, and we don't have no idea on what it is. There's no reason why it talks about the Shalom Valley in the book of the Kings, and then it mentions about the waters of Shiloah that flow softly in Isaiah, and we don't know what in the world Hezekiah was talking about. Do you understand? So why will we not want this history to be known? Pick your teacher. And if you are a teacher that's picked, maintain your humility. You don't want to offend people. People could tell whether you are mistakenly or comfortably saying something and when you're trying to belittle them. It's just like as a child, you know, like, oh, parent is upset with me or something else, so they're just reversing it back to me because I can't say nothing for myself. No disrespect to any parent. We all human. You understand? So, brothers and sisters, let's go on. And Menahat IV ruled for less than 10 years. And this is in the Turin Canon. His body has not been found. And Menahat IV was the adopted son of Amenemhat III. Since the parentage of Amenemhat IV is not, quote, certain, and since his body was not found in Egypt, and since his reign was less than 10 years, we can come to some conclusions. In the book Egypt Talking Writing, I stated that Amenemhat IV was to be identified as Moses in the book of Exodus. And if a brother's hypothesis is correct, that would mean this would be the image of Moshe in younger version, before 80, before he appeared to the Pharaoh that we're going to talk about. And man that had the fourth nose is cut off. What were you cutting the nose off for? And his lips is cut off there in this one here. If, brothers and sisters, it says, and the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. Why was his body not found? Why was his adopted sister not claiming him as her brother? There's a reason for that. Hamites are very national. That's why our Moshe of Dynasty 18 gets respect for getting the Hyksos out. That's why everyone understood, and we seen her body when we was in Egypt, Hatshepsut saying the abomination and people of the Asiatics, the people of Shem, as that she called them. They are detestable. What did Potiphar's wife say about, you brought this Hebrew, this Habiru, to mock us? What made Joseph identify himself as a Hebrew in the book of Exodus? Pardon me, Genesis. The God of the Hebrews, Elohei HaIbrim, is what the Most High was referred to as in Exodus. So don't knock Hebrew Israelite as a term, because in part, the Most High said he's the God of the Hebrews. He's going to talk to you, as pointed out in Shomer Habrit on Pesach not too long ago, how to get your attention. If he sat there saying the children of Isaac, probably wouldn't understood. Now you know who I'm talking about. So when we say black, we know it's a byword, but there's a reason why for and purposes on why we do such. You understand? Same reason why we don't present all of this in Amharic or Hebrew. You're going to lose the people. And people are going to say that you're sounding belligerent. So, like the brother, he is messianic. That's my friend, Hashah. You got to give the milk before the meat. On this channel goes back to November of 2014. We've been giving the milk. Aleph, Bet, Gamel, Dalet. Here's the history, chapter 1. Now we want to raise the bar in this particular case. Respect your audience. I see 10 people on there, and it may be more when the video is loaded. Do you understand? Or 11, sorry. But if people respect you to want to hear you, comment or not, give them something worth their time. The leadership of Moses, according to Josephus, we saw earlier that the kings of Dynasty 12 made raids into Nubia. Nubia is Cush, okay? Here in part is what Josephus stated. As soon, therefore, as Moses was come to the land which was the breeder for these serpents, he let loose the Ibes, and by their means repelled the serpentine kind, and used them for his assistance before the army came upon the ground. Notice how serpents is mentioned in that particular case. It's important. When he had therefore proceeded thus on his journey, he came upon the Ethiopians before they expected him, and joining battle with them, he beat them and deprived them of the hopes that they had of success against the Egyptians, and went on and overthrowing their cities, and indeed made a great slaughter of these Ethiopians. Now, when the Egyptian army had once tasted this prosperous success by the means of Moses, who was an Israelite, they did not slacken their diligence, insomuch that the Ethiopians were in danger of being reduced to slavery and all sorts of destruction. And at length they retired to Saba, which was a royal city of Ethiopia, which Cambyses afterwards named Meroe after the name of his own sister. So let's circle what we're talking about here on the map for edification purposes. What we're looking at here is Meroe, and I'm going to circle it in a different color so it can stand out. All right, let's do this here, say in red. Meroe. We just read about this in Josephus. Northern Sudan is part of ancient Egypt. Southern Sudan is part of ancient Kush. And as you go further south, past the first cataract of Say of the Nile, you get to what they call Nubia, the beginning of Kush. What do we want to point out? This is the lands that we're talking about. So don't give me Southern Africa as the land of promise. Don't give me West Africa as the land of promise. Jerusalem is not in Peru. It's not in Utah. Stop that kind of teaching. We're going to go into that when we go into Ezekiel, because the Most High said that Edom want the land of Israel and to cast it out as a prey to the residue thereof. So you got your Nabateans from Ishmael, from Nabayot, the Arabs, the Ishmaelites that want the land that you see over in Hebron and so forth and so on. You got the Peleset or the Philistines in part mixed with the Ptolemies in bloodline now, or since the invasion with the Greeks, and they are now known as your Palestinians of today. And then you got the Europeans, sons of Japhet, that Noah spoke upon and said, God deceived Japhet or enticed Japhet, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, because it's a mistranslation in Genesis 9:27. Let's go in saying God enlarged Japhet. Because of Shem, Ham, and Japhet, Shem had 26 nations, Ham had 30, and Japhet had 14. So it wouldn't say God enlarged Japhet, it says God enticed Japhet, why Yishkon ba'ahale Shem, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. So when you find these Khazars that come from the line of who? They call themselves what? Ashkenazi. Ashkenaz is what? German. They're telling you who they are while they're talking about they want to be in the land of Israel. Well, the true Israelite is way over here in the West, scattered in the East, stuck in Africa, and so forth and so on. Yay! The Gaon of the European Jews said that the Igbo were Israelites. The Igbo been saying that since the slave ship. We're going to go into it. Much respect to the brother Adon Zakar out of DCB, because he pointed out that most of the people, when they did their own names, Abaya, Asaya, Ataya, they had the last name of Yah in the name in the slave ship. And the Igbos were taken to Jamaica. So now let's go in. In 1830, 1831, Daddy Sharp, who they call Sharp in Jamaica of today, he led a revolution while Nat Turner was leading one in the United States. So don't separate the African American and the West Indian. Don't give us Willie Lynch. I got the fire slapped out of me by my beautiful mommy, whom I missed this month, making 19 years, because my mom, my sister, and my stepfather was at the table, and I said, wow, I'm the darkest one here. All I saw was when, yeah, that's the way Japhet judges Israel. We ain't doing the dark skin, light skin game. You know, I appreciate that slap. And I was 11. I was a little embarrassed because everyone else was around, like my stepfather at the time and so on. But you had to get hit with the truth. So I didn't read the Willie Lynch letter till I was 15. But I had the Willie Lynch slapped out of me by my beautiful mother 4 years before that. May she rest in peace. I'm saying that to say all of this, brothers and sisters. We don't need, though it doesn't hurt, the Gaon of the European Jews to sit there and say that the Igbo, all right, are legitimate Israelites. They've been saying that already, as pointed out. When you go to slaverecords.com, you can see the names of the people in that particular case. You understand? Now, this is not to sit there and promote racism, classism, socialism, colorism, anything of that sort. Because one thing the scriptures tells you is that Israel, you did worse than Canaan. Do you know, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a part in the scriptures, or was it a teacher saying it, that Israel, I destroyed nations for doing less than what you did. So we want the legacy of David in his later days, not the legacy of Solomon in his later days. When you didn't want an heir, so you try to put Jeroboam to death. Or Jeroboam, whom the Most High took his son before him, because I don't want you to see what I'm about to do to your father's house. Isaiah 57, the righteous perish, and godly men are taken away, and no one considereth it's the evil to come. So when you see the bad people staying around and the good people taken away, Methuselah, according to Joshua, died before the flood. I don't want you to see what I'm about to do. So though we don't want death and we don't want it no time soon, when you see good people leaving, and then you sit there and see they who are wicked, the Most High saving them, like he said it through the Asaph or David in Psalm 73. You know where I got Psalm 73 from? Lauryn Hill. I had a Tanakh since I was 10, but it took me to listen to Lauryn Hill and her song, as I said, calm, reading the 73rd Psalm. So I was like, hold on, I never read that one personally. Let me read it. And I was like, wow, Lauryn Hill knew what she was talking about. You understand? So we're saying all of that to say, brothers and sisters, getting back into this history, Josephus talked upon the matter of Meroe, and so does Herodotus when you go into that. All right? So, Shalom, Elgin Barrow. Shalom to everybody else in the chat. Shalom, Thomas Miller. And of course, shalom to my lady, Sarah Michaela. All right, let's go in. The 13th dynasty of Egypt had several viziers. Some of the rulers' names were erased as well. Not until the Middle Kingdom is there evidence of the use of a number of foreigners, Nubians and Asiatics, as domestic servants in Egypt. I got that from this book right here, The Egyptian Kingdoms. That statement right there that said in the Middle Kingdom is when the Nubians, which are the Ethiopians, and the Asiatics, which included the Israelites, were servants to the people. So do we see what time frame we're talking about? The Middle Kingdom is when they had the mud brick pyramids. Exodus 5 talks about them dealing with the matter of bricks for citing Josephus, the pyramids. Let's go in. Anytime a kingdom goes against another, the defeated are made to either pay tribute or become servants. When Goliath in 1 Samuel spoke to Israel, this was addressed. War produced servants. What did Goliath say to the house of Israel? Bring a man here, and if he kills me, then we will be your servants. And if I kill him, then you will be our servants. So they didn't go in many cases, following the European style of raiding villages to get slaves like the Fulani wound up doing, following the aspect of the Portuguese, but we're going to go into that next month in the month of May. Creator willing, we intend to do deeper lessons into that kind of subject, right? You had to fight to get someone to work for you, or you got caught as a thief and you had to work it off if you couldn't pay it. So let's say, just using me and my lady as an example in Torah, if I stole $5 from her, I'm supposed to give her $5.05. Because you got to replace what was stolen. You got to confess it too. You got to confess it. You can't just say, like some people do. They'll take your stuff. Then when it's brought to you, to their attention, they'll sit there and put it back without you knowing, and then you're just supposed to see it. The Most High don't want no punks. The Most High don't want no wimps. It takes a man, it takes a woman to sit there and say, my bad. Even if I didn't know it was yours. You know it wasn't yours, though. You didn't have to know who it belonged to. You knew who it didn't belong to. So in the words of my mama, go and get the belt, which is mine, and drop them. And so I'm saying that to say, well, I didn't know it was hers. I didn't know it was this, but you knew it wasn't yours. You ain't got to know. And you didn't take the courage to sit there and ask for it because you didn't want to be told no. So you went the crooked way and stole it. And then the European man now wants to say, well, we're going to give Ghana back all of the false gods that that we stole from them. They made a magazine on National Geographic recently talking about they're going to return the stuff that they stole out of Ghana. You got to put that in the magazine. The generation you stole it from is dead. But anyway, let's go on, brothers and sisters, in this particular case. Goliath told Israel that, and the Philistines said, let us defeat Israel, least We'll serve them as Israel served us. The Philistines and the Israelites were, in today's terminology, black people. You did not just go in and raid a village and steal people to get servants. You either had to work it off. If you stole something, Proverbs chapter 6 talks about that, the hungry thief. If he steals to satisfy his soul when he's hungry, if he's found out, he got to sit there and become one servant. You're sold for your theft. That's in Exodus. So if I stole $5 and I can't replace the $5, I got to do something to compensate for the $5. I got to become your hewer of wood and your drawer of water. I got to become your shoe shiner. I got to sit there and make sure I'm going to vacuum your house. I'm going to rake your yarn. I got to do something to compensate. That's called just weights and balances. And the person who got it stolen from, don't be upset. Look as to why your society had a thief. Maybe you want to do that. Maybe it makes your society stink on why people feel they got to do that. Because when you find black men busting like they did, correct me, in the 80s or 90s in the Diamond District, knowing you're going to get caught, he said, I did that so I can get some health benefits because at my job, they don't give it. Don't tell me this is not Egypt again by ships, double distress. You did a robbery so you can get caught, go to jail and get health benefits because your job don't provide it. So you're willing to take a misdemeanor or a felony so you can get your health together inside the prison system. This is the double distress by ships. This is the Mizraim. Mazel meaning distress. That's serious, people. So let's go on now. The place where they ruled was Each Tawi, set up by Amenemhat I. This was to be a defense against the Asiatics. And he said unto his people, behold, the people, the children of Israel, are too many and too mighty for us. Come. Let us deal wisely with them. And it come to pass that when they be full of us anymore, they also join themselves unto our enemies and fight against us and get them up out of the land. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh's store cities, Pithom and Ramses. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Sukkot, about 600,000 men on foot beside children. So if you have 600,000 men in any society, you got more women than men. Because in most camps, depends on the camp, no disrespect, you will find more men and women in certain cases. But when you got a gathering and a grouping of people, you're going to have more women than men in said case. You understand? Because if you got 19 children, the majority more than likely going to be females. All right. So we just want to point this out. The initial influx of Asiatics into the region of Kantir/Katana appears to have been during the 12th dynasty, concentrated at Tel El Dab'a, later to be the city of Avaris. So where do we see Avaris earlier, brothers and sisters, is where? Here. We see it in northern Egypt. So let's go back to that slide. Just want to show it on the map that quick. Right? And it goes to say, no Asiatic population resided in that area in the New Kingdom city of Pi Ramesses. On the other hand, dig down below the 19th dynasty capital, and you will reach the city of Avaris, a vast majority of the population being Asiatic. Why, brothers and sisters, do we want to point that out in that case? Is because these Asiatic people were in part the children of Israel. Exodus, as we read in Shomrei Habrit not too long ago, it says Israel left out of the land of Egypt with a mixed multitude. So the Ethiopians were part of that. Libyans were part of that. And I'll go so far to say that Zipporah, the wife of Moses, was not his only Isha or wife. because Josephus points that out in that particular case. So the Cushite and the Midianite were not in the same people. Some people will say Moses only had one wife because Cush border extended, so Midian governed by the Cushite in that particular case. That's not the best example because the people that were doing their thing at the time, remember, in Israel and all the families of the nations blessed. So Egypt was doing their thing, not Cush at that time when Moses was in there. Any nation that had Israel as a captive became the top. You understand? Became that top. You had great Alexander. He was around the timing of the Israelites. Pompey the Great was around the timing with the Israelites. Mansa Musa the Great was around the timing of the Israelites. Hint, not playing salesman, the book, Deuteronomy 28, History Untold to the Masses. Let's go on. The matter of bricks. We see here, or here we see, on how the bricks that were made. These bricks were used in the Old Kingdom, then in the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. We contend that the Exodus happened in the era of what is Dynasty 13 of Egypt, before the advance of the era of the ruler Salatis, the Hyksos ruler. So this is how they made the bricks. So remember in Exodus when it says the people needed straw in order to make brick, and they showed you the mud brick pyramids, just you gotta change the color of people, inside of the land of Egypt with Charleston Heston and so forth and so on. The master and slave were both black in that case. There were no white people oppressing white people in the heart of Egypt in the era before the Ptolemies. You got to miss the world on that one. White man, don't try to fit into history to say that you was a slave when you wasn't. And this is no disrespect intended. The slave and the master, in this case, were both melanated. And ancient Egyptians were not pro-black. They were pro-Kemet, pro-Simatawi, pro-Waset, pro-Hutrawet, pro-Tameri and Tashmehu, upper and lower. That red and white crown, which made the facet with the serpent upon it as they had it. They could care less about black people in general. They was about themselves and independent in many cases of others, which happened to cause the Persians after the Assyrians to defeat them so quickly because Egypt standing so secluded, the world is moving, and you still up there with grain and using rocks, and the Assyrians are coming with catapults and bows and arrows. So now you got to sit there and learn that. Even in ancient Israel, after the death of Saul and Jonathan, Malchishua, and Aminadab, David said, teach the men of Judah the bow and arrow, because these Philistines are a pest. All right, let's go on. This is Pharaoh Neferhotep of Dynasty 13. The Pharaoh Neferhotep who did not have a son to rule, whose son died before him, and who after his rule, his brother Seathor lost Avaris to the Hyksos. We already went over the matter of Avaris, and they're going to show somebody else with their nose cut off again. No respect. All right, let's go on to the next slide as we begin to close out. Pitom and Ramses in Egyptian. Pitom is Pi-Atum. Not to disrespect the Israelite culture, Atum is one of their gods. When you read in Torah and it says you have seen the detestable things of the Egyptians and their abominations, there was a creation story of how they said Atum or Atum created the world. For the fact that a little girl might be listening, we're not going to go into the pyramid text 1248 and pyramid text 1249. But suffice it to say that whoever created that story in a pyramid text was a pervert. Because you're not creating the world by asexual activity. And that's all I'm going to say at this point. So now it goes on to say Ramesses is the Avaris, which was before it called Pete Ramses, it was called Hutrawet. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor. What is called Pete Ramses is now called Frekus by a place called Kantir. You see this Kantir that we're talking about, brothers and sisters? That is no different than what we were talking about here. Let's get to it. Thank you for the time. We're almost done with this, family. I appreciate the people's patience. I ask you all to comment, like, and share, and leave your comment. My number's across there. You can text me. I'm approachable, reachable, and I'm thankful for such. When we read about Kantir or Katana, right? And then we see the same thing here. Why do we want to do this? Because we want to go over these maps, these names, these times, these places, and so on, brothers and sisters. So when we're talking about the timing of Passover, and he passed over our house, where were your houses? Did you know that they found, when they dug under Dynasty 19 era, a bunch of tools that was just left on the ground? And they said in archaeology, this is pointed out by some, that it looked like the people, whoever was here, just left in a hurry and just could not gather everything. So when we read in Exodus that the bread couldn't rise and you had to go immediately and they prepared no victual, they left tools there in the era of the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. The archaeologist is Manfred Beitek. Beitek is his last name. He wrote a book and all of that, who spoke upon what I just said. All right. Fekus was called Kasan by the Greeks. The same place was called Goshen by the Israelites. And here we see, with the time allotted, Avaris, Goshen, and Piton. Are there any questions? Any comments? If you can hear, and if you're in good spirits, type in the number 4. If you can hear, and if you're in good spirits, type in the number 4. Thank you, my love, Sarah. So we can see this on the map in that case. Seneptisi. And so Bekhotep the third, 13th dynasty. So we're leaving the 12th and going into the 13th. Now that seems to be the image of some person that's a lady in Upper Egypt, which was Southern Egypt. But let's see what she was about. Because remember, we went over the fact that Amenemhat IV, who, following the channel, for those who are doing it, thank you for such, I identify as the prophet Moses in the scriptures. His adopted sister, Sobeknefru, did not acknowledge who we understand as Amenemhat IV as a brother. But yet he succeeded her father because she knew nationalism. You understand? You adopted brother, but you ain't my people. This is Sobekotep III of Dynasty 13, and that's his name in hieroglyphics. You notice on the crown they have the serpent. That was a big thing in Egypt. So it wasn't surprising when he threw the staff on the ground and it became a serpent. The Most High is going to talk to you in a way that you're familiar with hearing. So you know it's Yah, the creator, maker of heaven and earth. So let's see what that lady was about. and who this guy was. Brooklyn Museum Papyrus. You could take the 2 or the 3 train to Eastern Parkway and go there. Sometimes the 4 train if you go late at night, but the museum's closed then. The Asiatic woman, Menahem. The Asiatic woman, Shifra. Stop. What was the name of the woman that appeared to Pharaoh and said that the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women? One was named Shifra, one was named Puah. So the Asiatic woman, Shifra, a weaver of linen. Could this be the same Shifra? Who knows? The Asiatic woman, Asher, she is called Wer Intef, a weaver. Asiatic woman, Rehu, she is called Kapu Nebi, warper of cloth. Asiatic woman, Aquaba, she is called Reseneb Wa, warper of cloth. Asiatic woman, Anath, she is called Iyunatan. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, let me know. A warper of cloth. Asiatic woman, Haimi, she is called, they don't have that there, weaver of linen. Asiatic woman, Menachem, she is called, they don't have it, weaver of linen. So Asiatic. Part of the Brooklyn Museum Papyrus. Again, go take the 2 or the 3 train to Eastern Parkway or Grand Army Plaza if you really want to walk. Part of the Brooklyn Museum Papyrus. This was addressed to Sobek Hotep III from a woman named Seneptisi shown before. What was she talking about? She was talking about her slaves, and she mentioned some of them there by name, as seen, who were not, quote, obeying her. That woman that you see there in the image there is a slave master of the Israelites. She enslaved the children of Israel. Her name was Seneptisi. She wrote in what, brothers and sisters, is known, right, in the Brooklyn Museum Papyrus 35.1446, dated to Dynasty 13, the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. We see part of that right there shown in the picture. That woman that I said, let us see what she was about, was a slave master. She would have had my 3 sisters making her linen. She would have had my daughter sitting up there saying, here you go, here's the water. She, again, was a slave master of the Israelites. And she made her complaint to Sobek Hotep III of Dynasty 13, saying that these people are not obeying me. What are we going to do? And the list goes on and on. I did it a little way for time constraint, but she mentioned 77 names. Over 50% of the names mentioned were Hebraic. I mentioned some of them there. Anat, Haimi, Menachem, Aquaba. Those are Hebrew names, brothers and sisters. So let's go on for edification purposes and close out. Moses, Mesu, Moshe, and linguistics. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? Let's stop right there with the Talmudic. Should I go and call a Hebrew woman that the child may be taken care of? What do we see? I don't know in other cities per se, no disrespect intended, right? If not, Black women, be they African American or West Indian, pushing whose baby down the street on Fifth Avenue, on Bowling Green, for those who know New York. You know good and well that is not that woman's baby. So when they talk about Egypt again in ships, the double distress, we see what's going on. They were getting Hebrew women back then to nurse the child, just like they used the black women in slavery to nurse their babies. Did you know that? Did you know that they would sit there in South Carolina, and when she is not able to nurse her own baby, they put the mistress's baby, the Caucasian baby, inside her arms to be nursed? That's documented in Charleston. Our people went through it. Mosai deliver us. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, for she said, because I drew him out of the water. So let's look at this, right? Because I drew him out of the water. Now, let's let's laser point with the time allotted. Wayigdal Hayeled, what be Ehu Labat Paro to the daughter of Pharaoh, and she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh. Wahila, and he became for her Laban for a son, and he became her son. Watikra, and she called Shemo his name Moshe, Moses. Watomer, and she said, Ki mean Hamayim, for or because mean from Hamayim, we know Mayim is water, Mashi Tihu, have I drawn him from the water. Do you know that in his name in Egyptian, the name was called Musos, which means child, and Moshe is his Hebrew equivalent to Musos. And in Arabic, it's called Musa. And in English, it's called Moses. If she is a daughter of Pharaoh, brothers and sisters, and he became her son, we cannot think it's so far-fetched with he blowing up in popularity in the land of Egypt that he would have not been a vizier, or as a brother is presenting, one of the pharaohs himself. Let's go on. In Egyptian, Mesu means be born, and Mesus means child. Moses is the English transliteration of the Hebrew Moshe. The Pharaoh's daughter, who we read of in Exodus 2, is Sobeknefru, the daughter of Amenemhat III of Dynasty 12. Well, brother, all of that doesn't matter. Then this channel isn't for you. Well, brother, it's about keeping the laws. Did I ever say it's not about keeping the laws? Did I ever say that? Or did I ever say that Hebrew trumps righteousness? Family, we have to, and I say this not trying to sound haughty, stop the sidebar hating of our own. All right? When this is presented and somebody says, and what about the laws? That's where your mind is. Bless. Now you teach me after we go over the history of the laws. And maybe you can start at love your brother as yourself and hate not your neighbor in your heart. Or where the king has to write a copy of the law so his heart won't be over his brethren. Because there are those in Israel who have that kind of energy or ruach or spirit or gisha or attitude. Let's go on, brothers and sisters, and close out with the presentation. Here we see, all right, a map, 12th dynasty kings. All of this area that we see here shown in the highlighted aspect. You might see the word katana right there as we went over earlier, also called quantir. All righty, Amu captives in Egypt. This came from the Heck Museum, where the tribe of Naphtali was in ancient days in modern day Israel, or in Israel the land. Amu is the Egyptian word for Asiatic. look like an image of a brother to me, and that is captives in Egypt. Okay, let's go on. The plagues on Egyptians: blood, frogs, lice, flies, death of cattle, boils and blains, hail and fire, locusts, darkness, death of the firstborn. The Most High said he will execute judgments on all the gods of Egypt. These plagues that the Egyptians had to deal with was attack upon one of their gods or goddesses or more than such. I'm not going to read all of that. You can have it on there. Pause it. When you watch this later, we ask you all to subscribe to the channel. And this is why I said, get your pens, your pads, and your paper. Next part, summation. The land of Israel was called Retenu or Karo by the Egyptians. The land of Israel was called Canaan by the Syrians. The land of Israel was called Palestina by the Greeks, the Romans, and Saracens. So that's the land there. Don't let people tell you it's in the interior of Africa. Don't let people tell you that's in North America, because the book of Numbers, chapter 34, says the great sea shall be your border. Thus ends the presentation, and giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and Maker of heaven and earth. I say Shabbat Sas, joyful Sabbath to everybody. We ask you all to subscribe to the channel, comment, like, share. Let us know what you think. My number's across the screen, 908-587-4841. Enjoy the Passover. Enjoy the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And brothers and sisters, may it be the Most High's will, if we humble our hearts, that the Most High will accept our prayers. And we won't be keeping these holy days at different times, which makes Israel look like a confused group of people to those who are walking in. We don't want to be the confounded ones, like in the case at the Tower of Babel. We want to be one people under the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. I am open to constructive criticism. Shout out on a human level to my lady Sarai. Shout out to the brother Mordeh Yitzhak of Congregation Shomrei Habrit. Shout out, brothers and sisters, to my immediate family who push and promote a particular brother. We're going to close out. Thus ends the presentation. Seeing the lightning thing with that was my indication to know that that's the end of the presentation. All right. I can be reached at 908-587-4841. Information in the description when the video is uploaded. Shalom. Most High bless. Shalom to you too, Sarah Michaela. Sameach to you as well. Shalom to you, Adonia Kanan Yehuda. Thus ends the presentation. Thank you.